Manchester Salon, which is a discussion forum in Manchester, primarily based around a public forum like the one that you saw tonight. But it's also developing a reviews section and an opinions section on the website, ideally designed so that people can deal with the tricky issues that aren't often dealt with in news bulletins.
So where did the idea of Manchester Salon come from?
It's inspired by the Battle of Ideas, which is a weekend festival of ideas in London at the end of October. It's only annual and it's in London. I've just thought, well, a lot of these discussions carry on in London throughout the year. We could do with a bit of this up north. So set up a salon, or it was originally Hilary Song who set it up, but I've taken over running it.
And what was tonight's event about?
Tonight's event was trying to tease out a scientific basis for animal rights, whether there is one or whether there isn't one. Obviously it's an ethical and moral issue, but it's an ethical and moral issue that a lot of animal rights people try and utilise science to benefit their argument. So I thought it would be good to explore the science behind it.
So my name is Stuart, Derbyshire. I'm a reader in psychology at the University of Birmingham.
So in the argument of whether animals and humans feel pain in the same way, what's your stance?
So my stance is that it's twofold, really. So the first and the simplest approach is to say, look, when you feel pain, it's not just a simple thing. You know, there's a sense of dread associated with it, or maybe there's a sense of annoyance, depending on how serious it really is. There's it tends to distract you from other things you might be doing. It has an emotional feel to it. It's a really quite complicated, subjective thing, and I think it's just wrong to transplant that and drop it straight onto an animal that hasn't lived the kind of life you live, it doesn't behave in the way that you do, and say that there's just this equivalent experience. I think that's a problem. So I think what the experience we have is richer because we're richer subjective creatures. So that's kind of the first response. But then the second response is that, well, maybe you could just create something much more raw. There's just a straight essence to pain, and it just is what it is, and you feel it in a raw kind of way. And that seems like it can work. You can imagine animals just being pain. Their world is just full of pain when they get a thorn stuck in them, and that's all it is. They don't comprehend what's going on, but they do apprehend it. And whereas we have an explicit recognition, I am in pain, and that colours our experience. And that, feels like it can work. I think it doesn't work because there's so much sensory information bombarding us all the time. Right now there's lots of different sounds, there's lots of different pressures on you, there's lots of different heat hitting you, colours, and all kind of absolute cacophony of stuff coming at you. So that if you just experienced the sensory world as it was, then what you'd be experiencing would be everything. And consciousness can't experience everything. Consciousness has to experience something discriminate. And so it seems we need a conceptual apparatus to pull out the thing that we're actually going to experience. And I can't see where that conceptual apparatus comes from for the animals. So even that more raw experience doesn't seem to quite work.
Well, I'm Anthony Jones. I'm a professor of neurorheumatology, and I lead a human pain research group in Manchester, which is mainly focused on trying to understand how humans experience pain and how we can change that experience in a good way.
So in the argument about whether animals and humans feel pain in the same way, what's your take on that?
Well, my take is that we just simply can't know. We can't know how other humans experience pain very precisely, so we certainly can't know about how animals experience pain. All we know is that in the higher primates, they certainly have quite similar apparatus as we do in terms of the matrix of structures that we know are associated with the human experience of pain. So they have the potential to experience pain in quite similar ways to us. But in the end of the day, we can't know whether that's the case or not.
And what do you think the conclusion was tonight?
There is a very tricky area, and it's not as simple as a lot of people make out. So there is a very common phrase that a lot of animal rights people say, which is animals and humans experience pain in exactly the same way, or pain and suffering in the same way. And I think tonight kind of knocked a chink in that, and it made people think, well, perhaps it doesn't. And there was, interestingly, quite a lot more people resorting to the idea that the argument was ethical or moral and not scientific, which is a good point to conclude with.
So how diverse is a group of people that tends to come to the events?
For me, I think it is quite diverse. There is a fair concentration of people who studied to degree level, a few of them in academia, but it's overall not really an academic-based discussion forum. It's just generally clever people with degrees without engaged with ideas.
And do you deliberately sort of put it across so people who don't have that scientific background and knowledge can still access what you're trying to do with this?
Very definitely, and the Salon covers a variety of issues, not just scientific issues, but it moves from scientific issues to discussions about literature, discussions about art. So it tries to cover a lot of ground, not all in the same discussion, and hopefully as much as possible bring the same audience to different discussions. So rather than have a discussion about science that's all science people, and a discussion on art that's all art, to try and blend the audience and mix it up.
Excellent. So if anyone wanted to know more about the Manchester Salon events or what's coming next, where can they find that information?
Type in Manchester Salon in Google, or go to manchestersalon.org.uk. All the forthcoming events are there, including a whole list of previous events, so people can see the type of issues that have been discussed, and for a lot of them listen to the audio recordings of it, so they can appreciate the flavour of the pitch and the standard of